So I got for my pitch stop today. Welcome to Pitch Stop, by the way. I'm Stephan and I get to talk about Superman today for my the DC universe, as far as some ideas that I had. So first and foremost, I just wanted to give the title of this Superman movie that I'm pitching to you guys is called Superman Lives or Superman Alive or something along those lines. And that's a reference to the Nicolas Cage movie that was never made. And so with this Superman Lives, it's in the DCEU. It takes place right after Justice League, and Superman's coping with coming back from the dead. That's a pretty traumatic experience, and I know that Marvel's uh, using that a lot with the blip and how people are coming back from that and how they cope with that. Superman, I'm not sure how long he's been dead according to the timeline of the movie, somewhere around a few months, maybe a year at most. So he's coping with that and coming back and being like, wow, I got stabbed pretty much in the heart. Now I'm back from the dead. And so he's dealing with that. And he's also trying to be a more positive influence because he has his run in with Steppenwolf and Darkseid, and he's like, I don't even know how if I'm gonna end up being a pawn in all this or if I'm gonna have my own choice. And so he's doing his best to be that Superman that we know from the comics, who's optimistic and uplifting, but he's just not feeling it because Earth knows him as the guy who kind of crashed around and broke some things. Also knows him as the guy who came back from the dead, which is kind of creepy. And so he's having his own internal issues and how he sees himself. I mean, he already has before he died, but now it's kind of getting worse for him. Until one day, just in the middle of Metropolis, this guy named Lobo comes out of nowhere, and he's like, "I'm here for Superman. I'm here to take him, and because I've got a bounty on his head." And he's like, "What the heck? Who's this guy?" So he fights Lobo, and I was just thinking it'd be awesome if Jason Momoa played Lobo, but we don't live in a perfect world. But something of that caliber, someone really big and who can pull off the mustache, the handlebar mustache there. And so they get into a tussle, and Lobo eventually has to relent and use a special weapon, some kind of death ray, perhaps magical net. Who knows? Something where he captures Superman and flies off with him. And then, the cyborg is freaking out and is like, this guy just stole Superman. What are we going to do? And eventually he comes into contact because of some technology that Lobo left behind, perhaps a part of the ship. He comes into contact with Green Lantern, John Stewart, and he finds out that Lobo himself has a bounty on his head, or rather, he's wanted by the Green Lantern Corps. And so John Stewart comes and meets with Cyborg, and they discuss how they're going to pursue Lobo and get Superman back. Meanwhile, Lobo, the bounty that was on Superman's head was from Mongol, who's this character who has this planet called War World. And on War World, it's basically like that Sakaar from Thor Ragnarok, where people are fighting all the time. It's kind of a gladiatorial planet. And so he goes there, and Superman has to fight the champion, because Superman's in a league of his own. He has to fight the champion there, and the champion there, as it turns out, is John Jones, the last Martian. And so they end up in a fight, and John Jones gives them one heck of a fight. And Superman manages to beat him because he has heat vision. John's weakness is fire, so heat vision comes in handy. And after that fight, he spares John, and Mongol takes notice of this because It's not like the animated series where you have to kill or whatever. You can make the choice yourself, despite the crowd. So Mongol takes notice of Superman, and Superman's like, you know, I don't want to fight for you. And he's like, it's better to fight for me, trust me. So Superman tries to escape from Warworld. And as he does, he gets captured. And then Mongol's like, you do know why I brought you here, right? He's like, to fight. And he's like, nope. And he has John Jones come in and touch Superman's head and show him a potential future. And that future is where Superman loses Lois Lane, and Darkseid comes to Earth and makes that BVS future scene where Batman's in the trench coat and we got the Joker and we got Deathstroke. And because Superman kills Darkseid and takes his place because he lost Earth, he turns into a bad guy. And that's where we get the Superman ripping out Batman's heart scene. And when Superman sees his future, he's like, man, that is so bleak. I can't go back to Earth. And Mongol's like, that's right, you can't go back to Earth. You go back, then you're just going to cause that future. And so Superman starts to realize that maybe he can do more good on Warworld. And he starts being that Superman from the comics. Starts to help the people of Warworld. He becomes the people of Warworld's champion. Because in Warworld, the people are tougher. The buildings are tougher. The structures are tougher. And he basically becomes the Superman of that world. And he gets, a lot of praise. He gets a lot of applause and things like that. And the people start to love Superman, and he starts to love the people. And he's like, I can do this. Meanwhile, Cyborg and Green Lantern finally catch up with Lobo. And they manage to, well, they don't beat him, but they manage to follow him to Warworld. They do get in a tussle, though. And so they get to Warworld, and it's very much a Toy Story 2 situation where Woody in Toy Story 2 is like, why would I want to go back to Andy's? I'm doing good here. I'm going to be preserved forever. My name is going to be in the walls of this Japanese museum forever. It's kind of the same thing with Superman. He's like, people love me here. It's great. I'm doing a good thing here. And why should I leave? He's like, I don't know why you guys came all this way. I appreciate it. And you're my friends, but it's not a big deal. I'm doing fine here. And they're like, the world needs Superman still. If you can't see that, then you're blind, man. And then as they're leaving, John Jones comes to Superman and he's like, I've deceived you, basically. And Superman, what are you talking about? What do you mean you deceived me? And he says, I showed you a possible future. He's like, it's not my power to show people the future. I can only enter their minds and show them what I want them to see. He's like, I'm a telepath. And Mongol wanted you to see that future because it's the future of his cousin Darkseid's death. And you're the one who does that. But if you're here, that will never happen. And he's like, well, will I become evil? He's like, that's up to you. And so he's like, I've got to get off of Warworld. Because if he doesn't, then there's no chance for the Justice League to defeat Darkseid, who is Mongol's cousin in this version. Because the characters look similar if you've ever seen them. And so he's like, I've got to get off of this planet. But then Mongol discovers him, of course. And he starts to beat the crap out of Superman. He's like, you're not going to stop what my cousin started. You're not going to stop what we've started. And they get into a fight, but Superman just getting the crap kicked out of him because Mongol has all these advanced weapons and can prevent him from taking in the light of the sun. But then Cyborg and Green Lantern and John Jones all team up. They help to defeat Mongol and pretty much free the planet from the rule of Mongol. And because he's a proxy for Darkseid, it's basically freeing them from the rule of Darkseid. and he says goodbye to all the people, and they're sad to see him go because he's Superman, and he's an inspiration to them all, and he's done so much good for them. And it's a very bittersweet thing because he's related with the children, he's related with the adults, he's related with pretty much everybody there, and they have looked to him as a hero and as a champion. And so when he goes, it's actually a very tender moment. It's a very special experience for them and for him. And he tearfully says goodbye, and then he goes back to Earth, and he realizes that maybe I have to approach things a little bit differently on Earth, but I can do the same good that I did on Warworld as I did on Earth. And so he slowly becomes that inspiration that we're all looking to. And it sort of ends with that happiness and that optimism and stuff that a lot of people have been complaining about, how it's absent from the Superman movies in recent times. But just because this is the DCU, I know it can't end on that note. And so, a little bit after the credits, like the initial credits, it'll show they have a broadcast from that piece of Lobo's ship, and they start to run it, and it shows Darkseid, and he says, "This is the last time you're going to define me, and this is the last time I'm going to reach out to you. You have frustrated my plans. I was going to give you a good life there, but now, because of your defiance, you've destroyed everything you love." And then it shows Darkseid, his ship is leaving Warworld, and Warworld is on fire, and everybody's been decimated. And so it ends on that pretty dark note, saying that, yeah, Superman can be that inspiration, but Darkseid can take that all away by taking away everything he's fought for, everything he's built up, and that safety. And so it's really about that relationship between that hero and the villain, where Superman, he can be an inspiration, build people up, but Darkseid can be that detriment and tear people down. And so we have that relationship, we have those stakes, we know what's the cost and what Superman's got to do and what Darkseid's gonna do. So that's pretty much my pitch for a Superman movie.
Let's do this.
Have at it.
The discussion.
I'll go first, I guess. One of the things that stood out, immediately as I was listening to this, it reminds me of Captain America: Civil War, where some people say that Civil War is closer to Avengers 2.5, which I've always disagreed with. Yes, it does have a lot of characters in it, and this has half the Justice League in it, but while they still have an important role to play, the plot hinges on Superman, and not just what he can do. It hinges on his choices as the protagonist. What is he going to do? How is he going to act? And so I think that does a good job of kind of fleshing out the greater DC universe without forgetting the focus that it is a Superman movie, and it does accomplish that first and foremost.
Right, and I never understood the complaint of having other heroes within a single superhero movie. You look at a lot of the DC cartoons, and that's what they're really based around. Is a Superman movie like All-Star Superman, but there's a lot of characters in there, some of which you probably never even heard of, and that's okay. It's a world full of superheroes, so why not use them? Especially since this story is more of a galactic story. You're going to run into those who take care of the galaxy.
Well, and that also, you run into the reality that by throwing in other characters, it gives you more spin-offs.
Yeah.
More character. Like, okay, we introduced this character who's considered a side character, even though in the comics he's a main character. now we can do a movie off of him.
Right.
Right, because we've had Green Lanterns introduced into DC already, but they were
Sorry,
just,
Ryan Reynolds.
right. They were just in the background of a flashback scene in Justice League. They didn't do anything meaningful. This is a way to, dip our toes as an audience for those of us who might not know who Green Lantern is or what the Green Lantern Corps is. It's a way for them to kind of, okay, they're like space cops. This guy's investigating someone. They're trying to, solve this case, arrest this guy. But you can also get the big action set pieces, and then hopefully, if the characters, if the audiences like the character of John Stewart, then you can, branch off into this whole other portion of the DC universe that's barely been touched upon.
Right. And just to build off of that, we got this police force, but then also we have this bounty hunter who's nearly as powerful as Superman, if maybe not just about the same level of strength. And it's interesting because now we broaden the universe within that universe, but also it gives us a chance to really experiment with what kind of Lobo we want to see. Do we want the one that, he might be flirting with Lois Lane and then Superman punches him through a building and, swears off screen or whatever? Whatever it is, we can experiment with that, and that could be a lot of fun. But it doesn't have to be the same kind of humor you'd see in Guardians of the Galaxy, where you could say the Guardians are kind of more of a bounty hunters or work for hire. But because he's strictly just the guy who goes in and hunts people down, that could be a lot of fun. And just to show that contrast with John Stewart as a policeman, and kind of working together, kind of not, because he's following Lobo back to War World. That just seems like a fun dynamic, and it adds enough levity, or could add enough levity, because it is a kind of more serious story of Superman asking himself, what kind of man do I want to be?
And in a kind of more meta way, he's asking himself what kind of man and what kind of hero he wants to be, while in the real world, there's been a lot of conflict surrounding the character of Superman. Some people have thought that he should be more hopeful. Some people thinking, no, this is, how he would be in today's world. And he is trying to be hopeful, but it's not that simple. This was, I thought, a really good way to, bring him to a different world. So people, in our world, the audience, they're not complaining, he should do this, he should do that. It's, no, this is him with a different culture. You get to see in a lot of ways what they want, but you still get the explanation of, it couldn't work because it's an entirely different world with different culture, different, races, all these different things. And when he comes back, he still wants to emulate that, but we know that it won't, he'll do as close as he can, but we can't do exactly that because Earth is different. We are different people with different needs, different urges. And then I also liked the idea that, it wasn't explicitly stated, but because War World, they were, because they were different than our world, they weren't prepared for a dark side to invade. While I'm sure that we would, not stand much of a chance against Darkseid without the Justice League or other heroes, we still would put up more of a fight. And so a world where we are more, cautious, less trustworthy, but also less willing to trust, that would be a world that Superman would have to act differently and be perceived differently in.
Absolutely. And just to build off of that, as Stephan was describing this war world where the buildings are a little tougher, the people are a little bit tougher. So in some ways, I imagine Superman in this world would feel a little more comfortable because he doesn't have to hold back as much.
Right. He's not a god among men. He's a demigod amongst men.
Exactly. And, and that might have been their humility is with Darkseid coming, because he never holds back. He always goes for the stranglehold. And I find that very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the choice that is given to Superman. Like, do I go back to a place that I am limited on what I can and can't do?
Mhm.
Do I stay here and just kind of do my thing?
Right, because Warworld could be his home as much as Earth could. He's not from either one. He was adopted into Earth. He could be adopted into Warworld. But ultimately, the decision to go back is partially based on the fact that, yes, he could be happy in either one of these places, but it seems that Earth needs him more than Warworld does.
Absolutely. And I like the idea that it's not just because of Lois Lane. That is a good thing for Superman, but the idea that, he does love Earth. He loves all the people, and he wants to give everybody an opportunity to be better and to do good. And I think that's a really worthy cause for him to be a part of, as opposed to this idea that he forces you to do what he wants to do, which has kind of been the popular thing just because, people have got this misconception that he's only good as a villain. And that's not true. He's actually better as a hero every time.
Yeah, he's not good as a hero or good as a villain because of how powerful he is. I mean, if he were to be a villain, his power would be what makes him a good villain. But he's good as a hero because of who he is, not what he is. His ability to care for people, the way that he, represents the best of what humanity can be. Not perfection, but someone who's honestly trying to help other people. That in and of itself makes him as heroic as anyone else could be.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, who's Lobo?
You have to look him up. He's has one of the most amazing character designs, in my opinion.
Yes.
He's
Okay.
just, imagine if Wolverine and Aquaman had a kid.
Mhm.
That's basically Lobo.
Yeah. He's this alien born on another planet, and if I remember correctly, his name Lobo translates to he who devours your entrails and thoroughly enjoys it. He's just like the ultimate demon spawn when he's born. He like kills everyone on his planet and he gets bored. So he starts going to other planets and start killing people. And then he's like, okay, I'll become a bounty hunter. I'll get paid to kill people. This is fun. But he loves dolphins. He's got like a streak of Deadpool in him. You know how Deadpool will love like Golden Girls and the Hello Kitty. Well,
Mhm.
Lobo loves dolphins. He's so weird that he was killed once in the comics and he went to hell for obvious reasons. He was so bad in hell that Satan kicked him out. He's like, I don't want you around here. You're too annoying. And so he got sent up to heaven and he got kicked out of heaven too. So now he's come back to life and he can't die because he's been kicked out of heaven and hell.
Yeah, that really does sound like Deadpool.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the biggest comparison is he is the Deadpool of DC.
Mm-hmm.
But with a twist because he's more like Superman. He can't fly like Superman does. He doesn't have that kind of power.
No, he has a flying space motorcycle sort of thing that he uses instead.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Right.
And he kind of has a, what is it, 90s aesthetic?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Kind of think Kiss, the band Kiss, if
Yeah.
they were Superman and a motorcycle gang person.
I there's got to be a picture out there I can like put together to make it look like
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pictures.
Kiss on
Yeah,
motorcycle.
honestly, Stephan brought up Jason Momoa playing him, and he can't because he's playing Aquaman, but he really would be a perfect casting for Lobo.
Oh, without a doubt. He would have been just right, especially since we've seen him stick out his tongue a lot too. So
Uh-huh.
it would have been perfect.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to say this, I guess. I don't care if he's playing two different characters. You look at Lord of the Rings, John Rhys Davies, he plays Gimli and Treebeard. I don't see why he can't do both. I honestly don't see a reason not to use him as both. So that's my vote is why not?
And with the right makeup, you can change how he looks. Why
Yeah.
not?
I mean, I think there's a lot of talented actors out there who could play him. We were talking about like maybe a Gerard Butler or maybe I think Carl Urban could do a decent job of that.
That's a good idea too.
But so long as you get the right person for the part, I say, if he happens to already be in the DCEU, go for it. I mean, they have done that already, but on a smaller scale.
Right.
The guy who plays Orm in Aquaman, I'm blanking on his name, Patrick Wilson.
Yes.
He was in Batman v Superman. He was the voice of the president on the phone when they were asking for permission to nuke Doomsday and Superman. So they already have done some of this.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And Marvel, in small extents, has done this too. And
Mhm.
honestly, if they can do it, why not?
Yeah, go for it.
And I think it's a great idea. Did you have an idea for John Stewart? I don't recall if you had
No.
anyone there. Because the rumor is the guy from Tenet.
John David Washington.
Oh yeah, no, I have heard that, and I do like that.
I like that idea
The
too.
one I was thinking about, I was like, who would be a good John Jones? Because I know the theory was the general from Man of Steel was John Jones.
Right.
But I'm kind of not digging that theory. I don't really like the idea that John is just sort of farting around on the earth all this time and not really helping, and he's pretending to be human. Because they already did that in Supergirl.
Mhm.
So I like the idea that he's the last of his kind as well. And he's somebody that Superman can relate to, very much like the Gladiator,
Mhm.
played by, I can't say his name.
Oh.
It's like the something.
The one who died while filming in
Yes,
Gladiator.
Yes.
Maybe not him, but
The
his-
black one,
yeah,
Jimon
no.
Hansu.
that's right.
Yes.
That's right. So if he
Okay.
was played by him, that'd be cool. But it doesn't have to be him. But he's like that character where he's that friend that Superman needs, kind of like that friend who Gladiator needs.
It would be funny if Jimon Hansu played him because this would be his third role in the
As-
DCEU. He was the Wizard in Shazam. He was the Fisherman King in Aquaman,
That's true.
and
Yeah.
then now he potentially be John
And
Jones.
then he's the guy who says who. So he'd be
He's in
every
Marvel too, yeah.
crap. I mean, why not? I think he would do a good job. But as long as he's like that sort of character, where he's like they can relate and they become friends,
Right.
and he helps build Superman up and say, hey, you kicked my butt. You're
Right.
doing good on this planet.
Yeah.
You said John Stewart's also in this, right?
Yeah, he's
Is
the
that-
Green Lantern.
Yeah, okay. I was
yeah.
thinking
Go ahead.
crap, what's his name? It's Christopher something.
What's he in?
He actually played Kratos in God of War 4.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Chris something is right there. He played Teal'c in
All I can think of is the creator's name now.
Right. No, he could do a good job of that too.
He actually would.
he kind of has that build. Is kind of what was going through my mind.
Yeah.
And he has that deep voice that could pull it off. Okay, that's gonna kill me. I need.
The other thing I was thinking about, because Cyborg and Green Lantern, if they're together,
Mhm.
it makes sense because Cyborg understands technology. What doesn't make sense, and I'm not too sure about, is if they're both kind of, no offense to them, stiffs, and them working together, I don't know if there would be a special dynamic. Maybe they just work well together and it'd go well. But I was like thinking, if there was anybody who's obsessed with Superman who would go out there to go find him, it would be Shazam.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
maybe if Cyborg finds out about Lobo and Green Lantern, but Shazam is the one who makes contact with Green Lantern and goes out with him.
That could be.
That could be interesting because then you have the clown who's super powerful, and then you have John Stewart who's like, no, rules. I'm
Right.
a cop. We got to do this right. So, but either way, whichever one works. But I was thinking sort of that clown and levity, and somebody who can stand up to Lobo.
Mhm.
That way, it's pretty fair there.
Yeah. Did you have
Christopher
any
Judge.
ideas as to who you'd want to direct this? Because I know that there's a Superman movie being developed by J.J. Abrams right now.
But it's probably not Henry Cavill.
Right, it's probably going to end up being Calvin Ellis, but that's just based off the fact that Ta-Nehisi Coates is writing it, and
Right.
he almost exclusively writes things that are stories that are very centered on race. Although with John Jones and Green Lantern, or John Stewart Green Lantern and Cyborg, those are three black heroes
Yeah.
who are playing an important role. So maybe he could work with that.
Possibly.
Honestly speaking, if you don't mind,
Mm.
I think if I were to choose a director, I think I would want Jon Favreau. Just because I know when he looks at a character, and takes them through that experience, it's always fun.
Mm,
But when it's dark, it's dark.
right.
So I think he would be a great director for this particular film.
Yeah, I think you could do a good job.
I agree with that. The other that comes to my mind, because they're not involved with Marvel anymore, as far as I know, and they wanted to broaden their horizons. If you got the Russo brothers, that'd be pretty much perfect, because they took
Yeah.
Captain America and they said, okay, growing up, he wasn't very exciting to us. He's boring. He's got the Falcon as best friend, and he does the right thing. How do we make this interesting? How do we add stakes? And how do we keep the core of the character still there?
Mm,
And he said, well, you just beat him up. He's Rocky. You put him in circumstances where he doesn't know where to punch, but he's getting hit all the time.
mm,
And the Winter Soldier was brilliant, and it got them directing many more films after that.
mhm.
And so if they can say, hey, what's the core of Superman? What if we take that and we put him somewhere else where he can be the core of Superman, but then be who we need him to be on Earth? And none of this horse crap where we say, oh, well, be whatever they want, or be nothing, it's all good. But it's like, no, you be something, or you be who we need you to be. Like if Darkseid's coming and invading, we need you to be a warrior. If somebody's about to commit suicide, we need you to be a counselor.
Right. Like, one of the things that I love about the character of Superman that this story really nails is that, in many ways, he is destined to be this great thing, and he's given all this power, so he has to do the right thing, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it does still come down to his choice to be good. And, without him choosing to be that, without him acting of his own free will, the character can easily become either evil under certain storytellers or boring under others.
Right. Or or just a stale
Yeah.
character. You just don't know. He's lukewarm. And honestly, that's just dumb. You shouldn't do that to any superhero. I mean, imagine if Batman was lukewarm.
Mm,
You can ruin any of these characters by making them so indecisive
mhm.
or so opposite of what they're supposed to be that
Right.
Or if
it can still be entertaining, but you lose the core.
Mhm.
You lose what makes them them.
Yeah.
Hey, Superman. Should I go with black cape, gray cape, black cape, gray cape?
I'm thinking blue. Yeah, and
Some days you just can't get rid of a cape.
it was important to me that Superman make his own choices and that he have options, and that the plot that he's not just captured and then the plot happens. It's like, no, you could escape, but should you?
Right.
And it's also like I said, it's just about him making those choices and him seeing a potential future where he's evil, because there's always that potential for good or evil in all of us.
Mhm.
And if he sees, a lot of people play off of Superman being evil, and I'm not a huge fan of that. But if we say, hey, it's possible, but we give him a choice once he's seen a potential future to say, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy who rips out Batman's heart.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
Right. 'Cause, like, while I don't love the nightmare scenes in Batman v Superman, it does a great job of showing why Batman would be worried about Superman.
Right.
But from a Superman perspective, we know that yes, he could do that, but we should, as an audience, know that he would never do something like that because of who he is.
Right. Absolutely. And we're just in such a stale amount of Superman right now that to have him lean towards his core in any way, even if that takes him off world, which I like a lot,
Mhm.
because it gives him a new perspective on things. I think that's something that should be explored if this were a direct sequel to Man of Steel, basically,
Mhm.
and Justice League, because one of the reasons why I think Shazam does so well is it's Superman at the core. He has this power given to him, and instead of using it only for his selfish needs, because he does use it for his selfish needs, just as Superman probably did growing up a little bit. But then at the end of the day, he decides, no, I'm going to save my family. Who does Superman think his family is? The entire Earth.
Mhm.
He thinks that every life is worth saving. And that's something that should be explored more.
Absolutely.
Because in Man of Steel, the decision to kill Zod, really at that point, it was a very tough decision, and he didn't really have any other options at that point. But now that he is kind of the top dog, he should be able to make the right decisions as often as he can.
Mhm.
And it should be portrayed in such a way that we're saying, this is who he needs to be. In that moment when he has Zod, he has to be that guy. It's like, I'm sorry, what other choice? They wrote it that way. He had to be that guy. Whereas I wanted to show the other side where it's like, no, you could also be a champion. You could also be a hero. You could also be an inspiration. Not just because your dad says, oh, well, someday, eventually, maybe you'll be a good. It's like, no, I've decided now I want to be the good guy. I want to be an inspiration. And I don't want to see my planet suffer, and I don't want to see this planet suffer. And they're doing well, And he's whoever we need him to be. Just like Martha Kent said before she totally takes that away and says, well, if you want to. It's like, well, he does. He's Superman.
Right. Yeah, I never loved that scene in Batman v Superman. I found her characterization was a lot better in Man of Steel.
Oh, yes.
Much, much better.
Yeah, I think those are all the thoughts I have just off the top of my head. Do y'all have any others that?
No, I think I got all of it. You have anything?
Yeah, I do got to say this. One thing that I was actually talking to Justice, and Justice is, hope he doesn't mind me give him a shout out. He and I were talking about when it comes to story writing, what you want to do is always place your character in a position where you can't use common sense to get out of. Where you have to make a choice, and it's not the most common circumstance. And that's one thing I really liked about your pitch, Stephan, is like now Superman has this choice he has to make, and you can't use simple common sense to get around it. It's more of like it's all about your emotions at this point. There's no logic involved, and to me, that's just great story writing. By the way, I also looked up John Stewart. The guy we were talking about. I was thinking it's Christopher Judge. That's the guy that plays Kratos.
Okay, that's his name.
Yeah. So, get that out of the way. I got nothing else. We good?
All right, great.
Good.
Well, thank you for watching our pitch stop. Tune in next week. I'll be pitching next. Yeah. But for the discussion, it'll just be these three guys. I'll be out of town. So, catch us next week.
All right, cool. See y'all then.